And welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another episode of Loosely Scripted. I am your host, Bach. Thank you so much for joining us. If you've never caught the show before, Loosely Scripted is basically just a chat back and forth between me and other people in the esports industry. We've got no script, and we've got no rules either. Joining me on the broadcast today is going to be someone I've been spending a lot of time with online recently, a caster who's been making waves in the Valorant scene, an amateur who's starting to become more professional by the day. I'm speaking, of course, of Simo. Simo, thank you for joining me.
Thanks for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
Now, Simo, you kind of came out of nowhere in regards to Valorant. You were not a CSGO caster. You were very much an amateur League of Legends caster, mostly doing smaller scale events. Why the switch to Valorant? What was it that kind of triggered that passion to just jump right in?
So I've been a big lover of Riot Games ever since, obviously, they released League of Legends, and then very recently they added the S to the end of Riot Game, and they released TFT, they released Runeterra, they released Valorant, all games that I enjoy playing. But Valorant was something that I really saw that was quite interesting during the developer release, and I think it was late fall of 2019. And once they started releasing actual clips and footage of the gameplay, and we got to see a little bit more, something that I was like very interested in. And it's not to say that I've never been interested in FPS, I used to play a little bit of Call of Duty 4, not professionally or anything, but that was probably the game I spent a lot of time in as a gamer. It's probably the only FPS title that I really picked up a lot of. But when it comes to Valorant, it's something that I think really just caught my eye, and I really wanted to try my best and start kind of like a new leaf in Valorant, because League, I feel like, wasn't really quite working out for me.
So you switch from League, which is not a first-person shooter, into an FPS like Valorant. How has that transition been? Because they're two games that play out completely differently. Like, yes, you still have skills, you still have abilities, you still got ultimates, kind of similar to what you would have in a game like League of Legends or Dota or other MOBAs. But obviously, the pacing is a lot different. A team fight might occur every few minutes in League of Legends. Team fights occur every single round in Valorant. So what's the dynamic been like for you, and how have you been adjusting?
It's quite interesting. Even before Valorant, for some reason, one of my close friends and I, we were theory crafting what it would be like to have two play-by-plays in League. And now you're sitting there, you're thinking, like, what the hell are these two guys talking about? Because that seems like such an oddball thing to propose, right? Like, League has such defined roles when it comes to commentary. You've got a play-by-play, and you've got a color. The color never talks during action, and the play-by-play rarely talks during analysis. In fact, they're probably asking questions to the color so that they have the opportunity to provide their own opinion, or if the play-by-play is really just interested in something. But when it comes to Valorant, you really got to double dip in two play-by-plays and try to squeeze in color whenever the other play-by-play has just finished a call. The other person's just got to pick up on what happened there. Why did that happen? Why was that important? What was that of relevance? And I took a stab at commentating, a CSGO match before, nothing too crazy. I wasn't like in a weekly league commentating all the time. I took a stab at some CSGO. I took a stab at some Rocket League in late 2019, which gave me a little bit of flavor, at least a little bit of taste of what it would be like to have two play-by-plays, or to have two people calling the action, and you just have to figure out the correct flow of the actual pacing of the game. So, for example, what I mean by that is Rocket League's version of two play-by-plays is very different than say Valorant's or CS:GO's 2 version of play-by-plays, just because of the pacing. Like you said, a round is going to have either standardized non-action, which is just like, one team has pistols, the other team has rifles. Like, it's like, if the only crazy thing that could possibly happen is if the team with pistols wins over the team with rifles, right? Whereas with Rocket League, there's always action. Someone's always got the ball, in hand. But when is that action actually meaningful enough for somebody to make a call on it, right? And so the adjustment, while League obviously has very defined rules, the adjustment has just been tuning my own style, because I am coming from a play-by-play background, to be very giving to my other co-commentator, to try to be as open and as passable as possible. Because if I'm not passing, then I'm hogging the mic, and that's no way to treat your co-commentator at all.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely an interesting dynamic when it comes to broadcast for first-person shooters. Commentators in general need to be able to do a little bit of both roles. You have dedicated people to like the analytical role. Those people end up on desks in the breaks to do the analysis. It's not like League, where you might have a significant chunk of non-action, where it's just laning and harassing, but it's not actual team fights. So in that time, they can break down what's going to be occurring, what we can expect to see. And then when everything sort of combines, that's when you have like the toss to the play-by-play, who just goes nuts with all the action. In that like brief, maybe 20-second span of a team fight, it's like verbal diarrhea.
Yeah.
But in games like Counter-Strike and CSGO and Overwatch, those moments switch constantly, because you can have a team fight that just develops within the first few seconds of a round, depending on how aggressive teams decide to play it. Or you could have a team fight that comes in the final seconds of a round because someone plays it very passively and doesn't push. And you can have, like you said, like dead rounds where it's like, it's obvious they're going to lose the round. Like, it's all pistols, no armor, they're rushing. Those are the opportunities to kind of like have some fun. And that's the other side of it, is finding when it's not okay to kind of step away from the game and pepper in some lighthearted humor, like anecdotes or something just kind of memey and enjoyable to talk about. Finding that balance is tough. It's hard. But we've obviously been casting together a little bit in Valorant. I feel like we've done a pretty good job of balancing out, tossing that mic back and forth. Now, casting is not the only thing you do. You also have another job. Why don't you touch base on what your other job is?
Well, to some, this might come as a little bit of a shock. And I am a esports broadcasting professor at St. Clair College in Windsor, Ontario. So what that entails is I teach 4 semesters to a 2-year, 4-semester program. You get a diploma at the end of it in esports administration and entrepreneurship. And my particular focus is to teach students, to teach new esports, employees, new workers in the space that are just getting their foot right into the door of esports, to teach them the very fundamentals of esports broadcasting.
So, how did you get that job? Because, like we said, you were definitely an amateur in the league scene. You admit that yourself. I think even your Twitter biography says like competitive Valorant caster and amateur League of Legends caster. Like you sort of like make it obvious that like you've done a little bit maybe better for yourself in Valorant. How did you end up in that position? Was teaching something you always wanted to do, or did it just kind of happen?
I feel like it just kind of happened. Just because in the league community, I only got as far as, amateur casting per se. I've done a lot of other esports work. Like, I've worked for the Score Esports at one point. I've worked for Red Bull in the Canadian esports division. I've done a little bit of work here and there. It's not like I'm relatively new to the esports scene.
Yeah.
And when I graduated from university, universities in Canada are 4-year institutions. I was fielding this job offer with this ring company that wanted to get into esports, but they just flopped at the last second. I mean, it's the story of esports. You have like this opportunity that seems like it's too good to be true, and you're just holding on, and then sometimes it'll fall through. It happens to everybody in the esports space. And so that opportunity fell through, and like every college graduate, I was at retail just trying to look for esports opportunities while still obviously making money. I wasn't going to just sit there and do nothing. Um, this opening opened up, and I applied. And usually, when you apply for things, you're kind of like, like I won't get it. But then came the interview, then came this mock little teaching session, and then I became one of the top three candidates, and the rest is history. But to be quite fair, I think one of the reasons why I had a little bit of an edge in the running is because my degree is in sports broadcasting, and so I already have some of the knowledge and tools that can just easily be applied to esports. And while when I was in my degree, I did take every opportunity to apply my learnings to esports and try to hand in my assignments in esports. In fact, if you look up on YouTube esports 101, that's my practicum project where I'm trying to teach League of Legends to like the sports boomer older audience. It's like my attempt at a lecture series about League. Like the pilot is with League, but I was intending to go to CS:GO and to Overwatch and to Rocket League, but the pilot was just to see like where it could go. And that was my like final big culminative project, and it's pretty well produced. It's pretty well produced, and it took like 4 months to put it all together. But at the end of the day, that the opportunity, you just apply and you hope for the best. And in that case, I did the work and I got in.
Now, what's interesting is, like, if I wanted to do that in the U.S., I would have to go to a 4-year college and have, like, obviously, I'd have to have a degree, but I'd also probably have to have a master's degree to teach at any U.S. college, and I'd need to have a certification in education. Did you have any education type background during your degree, your quest through university?
No, and so our colleges, like the college that I teach at, it is not a 4-year institution. It is a
Mm.
2-year institution, very similar to
An
what my
associate's
girl,
degree, it like
well, my
basically
well, my girlfriend tells me are JUCOs in America.
junior college, yeah.
Yeah, junior college, and where the bare minimum that you need is a bachelor's degree, which is what I have. Yes, there's going to be certain lines of thinking where you're going to need to have a master's. The other professor that I work with does have a master's degree, but I think they were like, when it comes to colleges, they're always in need of teachers, just because depending, well, they always need part-time teachers, and that's what I started off as. But then I made the transition to full-time once we had more students come in, right? So more students, more demand, you're gonna need somebody in there. And at the bare minimum to start, you need a bachelor's, but it's just because of the level of the institution, right? I've got a 4-year degree, and I'm teaching people that are aspiring for a 2-year diploma, and that gap is enough for the college to
Mm.
say you're qualified to teach.
Have you ever thought about going back and getting your master's and continuing on this education path, or is this sort of just something that you sort of fell into and you're content with where you're at now?
Man, I don't mean to knock education institutions at all, but
Go for
I
it.
have I have a feeling that everything I learned in my 4-year degree, I probably could have learned if I just sat on YouTube and really like just spent my own time diving into what it is that I wanted to learn. Like if I wanted to be a video editor, I should have spent all that time looking at, Photoshop and After Effects tutorials. If I wanted to be a broadcaster, I should have been volunteering at local stations, which I did. But
Yeah.
I probably could have learned the same amount there, and actually faster, because I'm doing the work. I'm actually doing the work, instead of in these little controlled environments where I'm potentially limited on my creativity. Whereas on a TV show, or a local news station or whatever, the creativity is all in how you switch the camera, when
Yeah.
are you going to, all of that stuff.
Also, you get use case specific experience with equipment.
Yeah,
That's actually huge.
yeah.
Like in the States, we have a school called Full Sail. It's down in Florida. Full Sail's a big school for technical and AV. A lot of people go to Full Sail to learn how to do AV stuff. The problem is they go to Full Sail and they train on top of the line equipment. Then you go into the workforce and only a few people in the world use that top of the line equipment. So then you find yourself unable to use like older stuff. I know a buddy went to Full Sail 10 years ago and he was on digital boards 10 years ago which at the time everyone was still using their old analog boards, basically waiting for them to break so they could upgrade, because it's a huge expense to constantly
Yeah.
upgrade your equipment, and if you don't need to, you don't do it.
Yeah.
So he gets out of the workforce on all these digital boards and he starts to go do audio work, and he's like, I don't these analog boards are a little more confusing to me, because he just didn't quite understand all the ins and outs of those setups. So yeah, I mean, I think that hands-on experience is huge, and I say this as someone who also does not really love the educational system in the United States. I did not go to college. I did not go to a single class. I didn't audit a class. I didn't even take my SATs because I knew that I wasn't going to go to college. So I've gotten all of my jobs just by working hard and learning hands-on. I feel like that is really the best way to educate yourself, is to have someone above you who is basically your teacher, who knows how to use the equipment and teaches you, and then you learn other stuff as you're going, because you start to become really focused on what you're doing, and you really pour yourself into it.
Yeah.
Now, you're a young guy. What's the dynamic like being a professor at a college and your students not being that much younger than you?
Yeah, so I've already run into that problem, full transparency, but all it's taken is a couple of semesters to really fine tune my teaching style. And I feel like when we return in the fall, there's like, I have a feeling that everything that I've done in Valorant is going to make a lot of the students go, well, holy crap, that's really cool. And for me, that's going to be a ticket to respect. Um, in the past, I feel like I still have had some of that respect, but I feel like it's going to be even easier with the stuff that I've done now in Valorant. But my teaching style is very, you guys do the work, and I'll just monitor, and I'll see you, and I'll correct you guys as you guys go along. I mean, it's a broadcasting line of courses that I teach. There's not a whole lot of room for lecture. Yeah, there's a couple of lectures here and there that I've designed, but for the most part, you get in there and you work on the stuff, and I make sure that you're on the right path.
Now, if things in Valorant like really took off for you, like let's say you start getting more offers. Let's say Riot comes knocking and says, "We want you to cast our official Riot circuit." Would it be hard for you to step away from teaching? I mean, one of my first jobs, I ran a youth center, and I actually loved that job. I loved working with kids. I really enjoyed being a mentor, but it was tough because it didn't pay very well. It was a nonprofit, so it was out of a church. It was the kind of thing like, if I wanted to, buy a house and, expand my family, I was going to need to find another job. And I was also working a lot, because that's just the nature of the beast, is you pour yourself into that kind of position. But I do still miss the interaction I had with the kids, and that feeling of mentorship and making a difference. Obviously, as a professor at a college, it's a little bit different, because they're not just coming to you for advice. They're
Yes.
coming to you because you're their teacher. But at the same point in time, you feel like you're making an impact in someone's life. If Riot came knocking, would you miss that? And would you really want to say goodbye? Would you still try to stay involved somehow?
I think there's a lot of flexibility in the job itself. So if I really wanted to, I could default back to a part-time position, to give myself a little bit more flexibility, and hop over to doing some work for Riot. But it depends on the scope of what Riot asks. If Riot asks me to move to LA, it's gonna have to be a little bit of a bigger decision on my end.
Yeah.
But if it's just like, because LCS is on the weekends. Actually, no, sorry, completely random segue. I'm gonna come back to my point. But if Valorant releases like a LCS, are they going to put it on the weekends to compete with their own product, LCS? Sorry, that's just random thought.
Well, the question is, would it? And obviously, this is a sidebar, but would it actually compete, because they're two different games?
Yeah.
Yes,
True.
technically they're running simultaneously, but the audiences are likely to have limited crossover.
Yeah. Anyways, back to the original question. Um, to be quite honest, the only reason why I fell in love with League is because of the LCS. It means a lot to me to consume content that is from the esports spectrum that is within the Riot Games umbrella. I fell in love. I mean, as I'm wearing a Cloud9 sweater, I fell in love watching Cloud9 have an absolute dominating performance. And then when things hit really low, they crawled back through the depths and consistently made Worlds appearances. That is the type of stuff that I love to see. And that storytelling aspect that Riot loves to put and inject right into their esports. If they came knocking for Valorant, like without even skipping a beat, I would love to be a part of it. Not because I want the fame and the fortune and the big ego, but because it's just always meant a lot to me to consume their esports content.
Now, why don't you let us know what else you've done in your life? Because it seems like you came out of college and like based on what we've learned already, you came out of college and you just started teaching in college. Obviously, there's a gap there. You said you worked in retail, but you also mentioned that you worked for a couple of other companies in the
Yeah.
esports space as well. What did you do for Red Bull?
So for Red Bull, it kind of was like a lot of different components that was revolved around my job. Like I assisted in some of the events that they put together. Like at the time, Gommel was underneath the Red Bull label as well. Get on My Level, a really huge Smash Bros event held in Ontario, probably the biggest Canadian major, to be quite honest.
Mm.
And so I wasn't responsible for putting the event together, but I was responsible for all the communications and all the PR that Red Bull was going to be pushing forward through Gommel. Not necessarily Gommel's PR itself, but Red Bull's communication channels regarding the event. I was responsible for helping announce. Oh man, that was a nightmare. They were announcing a partnership with the Toronto Football Club that competes in the MLS. They were announcing a FIFA player that was going to be signed to the MLS, but originally he was under Red Bull, so they kind of had this like joint agreement. And so I was responsible for the announcement, the photos, organizing everything. It was a lot. It was pretty much a communications job, but I was one of two esports employees there. The other guy was events. I was communications. And so I wrote articles. I put together press releases, all that good stuff. I'd also worked at the Score prior to that. I was pretty much a video production intern, put videos together. A lot of the story ofs that you see, someone's cutting the actual video together, and somebody is gathering all of the clips and all of the footage and thinking about where it would fit in a script. And so I did that for a few videos. The one I remember clear in my mind is the story of Mewtwo King. I remember looking through hours of footage of Mewtwo King. And if you know Mewtwo King, you do not want to go through hours of footage of this guy. Because you're just gonna find some awkward interactions. You're gonna find some. I mean, he's a great player and he's got a great head on his shoulders, but there's obviously something that just can not really sit quite right with you when you're looking through hours of footage of just awkward interactions with different people. But prior to that, like I said, I did a lot of casting work. Probably my most notable memory. There were two events that happened in Ontario that brought down League of Legends professionals to help host the event, and I was the host for the event, and I interacted with them, did Q&As and all that fun stuff, which was probably the highlight of my amateur League of Legends career.
Now, is casting something you really want to do full time? Like we mentioned, if something came up, an opportunity came up, but let's say an opportunity like that doesn't come up, but you start getting enough gigs that you could do it full time. Like you could leave the position as a teacher, and obviously I don't want to scare the college away, but maybe they'll offer you a nice big fat raise if they think you're looking to leave. But seriously, like that's a question that a lot of us have to answer at some point, is when does this transition from being a side hustle or a hobby into a job? And would you be willing to even consider that? Because alongside the possibility of making this career is the obvious need to now then travel. It becomes like a constant concern. We don't really know what the Riot esports space is going to look like in regards to Valorant, but for CSGO, I mean, the top guys travel somewhat regularly. I think in 1 year, Sadicus said he was home for like about 3 weeks total.
Oof.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I read some stuff about the machine. Like I think one point it was last year or the year prior, he released a tweet that he was like, I'm done, man. I'm burnt out. Like he just did like back to back events for like over 300 days, just nonstop, and that can be rough, of course. But at the end of the day, I think where my heart lies is in content creation. Commentary is a form of content creation, and I love it, and I love doing it, and it makes me excited. Teaching is a form of content creation. I have to put together a curriculum
Yeah.
and syllabuses, and so I love content creation at the core. And so if, like you're saying, this side hustle turned into something bigger, that would be great. Like I'm saying, at the end of the day, I like content creation, and commentary is that form of expression where the creativity is my desire, or sorry, my decision on what I want to say during a play. I always try to be fun, I try to be a little memey, try to have a little fun touch, as you've probably felt
Yeah.
already from my cast. But if I start streaming on Twitch, or if I start streaming on YouTube and that starts to blow over, then sure, that's another form of content creation. At the end of the day, that's where I love to make people laugh and I love to make people smile. And that is at the core of why I love commentary, but it's so much more. It can be so much more than that, depending on what route I can go or other people can go.
So ultimately, you're a performer.
Yeah.
So now I have to ask you: did you ever have a desire to perform in other ways? Did you ever want to like make music or act, or did you ever like when you were a kid? Did you take part in school musicals and school plays and stuff like that?
So when I was in high school, what I remember clearly is I took drama all 4 years, and I remember in my last and final year of high school, I got the highest mark in drama across 2 semesters. So there was like my semester, and then there was another semester of completely 30 different students, and I got the highest mark out of across the whole year. And I don't think anyone. I mean, it's possible that somebody could top it, but 97 is. I mean, who cares? It's high school, but um, and I was really debating as to whether or not to go into acting. And when I was in university, my first degree, I didn't go into sports right away or sports media right away. I went into business because, to keep your parents happy, that whole shtick. And I hated it. Like, I hated the people. It just felt so fake to me. Everyone was like, oh, yeah, like, shake hands. And it just felt like this whole gung ho thing about something we don't even know that, like, why are you, like, I don't know. It just felt like super networky and just, I just didn't like it. And so I thought about going to like an acting school, and I got in contact with like an agent, and I kind of flirted with the idea for a little bit, but it really intimidated me. I don't know what about it. I stepped away and was like, okay, this is like too much. I don't know why. I just was like, I don't feel like I'm ready for this. Will I ever revisit it down the line? Maybe I might be like George Clooney or something, 40 years old, get into acting, and all of a sudden, I'm this like silver fox dude. I'm not trying to I'm not trying to outline myself down the road, but like there's tons of actors that really started acting really late into their career. Like Harrison Ford is a great example of that. And in high school, I used to DJ as well, and I won the talent show for beatboxing.
Oh, you shouldn't have
I
said
came
that.
I came in first place, and then I came in second place the year after. And so, yes, I have interest. I have been interested in performing in very many different aspects, and I've tried and I've played around with them before. In another life, I probably would have become like a DJ or something like that. I used to be really into that and spinning the tables, but um, these are all things I tried. I had some fun with, and I might return down the line. Like, who knows? There might be a DJ stream coming up soon. I don't know.
Well, it's getting harder and harder now because
Yes, that's
yeah.
true. That's true. That's
But
true.
you mentioned the beatboxing, and I think that was dangerous because now I need an example.
No, no, you can't put me on the spot like that. No, you can't do that. You can't do
I
that.
mean, to be fair,
No.
it's been a while. Hey, you know what? In high
Yes.
school, I helped start the breakdance club. But if you asked me to
Oh,
do it today, would not be able to do it at all. It was a long time ago. I mean, we're talking like half my life ago. That was my
yeah.
freshman year of high school. I'm now, in my 30s. There's no way I'm going to like slap down some cardboard and start busting out windmills on a street corner.
Yeah.
It's just not going to happen. I can still do some footwork.
Yeah.
If at after parties, we usually have a little bit of fun with that. Um, but I do think there's this interesting thread with a lot of people who work in broadcast and esports. A lot of casters have a background in some kind of performance art. Maybe it wasn't necessarily acting, but maybe it's like you said, like DJing, or maybe they were in a band and that they like wanted to do that. And I think all of us had this desire to perform in front of people. And some
Yeah.
of us just sort of really fell into it. Like before then, we had massive performance anxiety. We would never get up in front of people. Like I've performed in front of people my whole life, playing in bands, and when I was a kid, I had piano recitals when I was like 10 years old. So I didn't really have an issue with that. I was in plays and musicals all throughout grade school. Um, I started getting a little bit shy once I got older, and we had to sing more. And I was like, yeah, nope, not a fan of solos. It's not that I can't sing; I know that I can, and I've since performed in front of people singing. But it just was a fear for me as a child. But there is this background desire for me personally that I've always wanted to do stand up comedy. It's so weird because it just kind of came out of nowhere. But I feel like I would really enjoy it. But at the same time, it's terrifying.
Good bonds
Like,
or
yeah. So it's like I think
yeah.
I'll pass. So like it's like you say, you were like flirting with the idea of acting, but then you're like it was kind of scary, like the approach, and it's just it's kind of overwhelming. That's how I feel. Like I'm like, what am I supposed to do? Like go to New York one night and like bomb in front of a bar and hate myself forever? Like I'm not gonna be like, at least you tried. Like no, that sucked.
Yeah, but I still think you know, there's something I learned very recently is like like if you're not going to try, what is then what's the point of even dreaming about that? Not to say that like to like, you know,
Yeah.
harp on you for not giving it a shot. So like for example, me and my friend used to theorize about TikTok. Like in October, September, we used to talk a lot about TikTok. And then in December, I was like, screw it. I'm just gonna post one TikTok a day and see what happens. And then I did it for January as well. I since have stopped on TikTok, but I stopped at 20,000 followers and 300,000 likes on TikTok. Nobody knows this because I don't care about it. Like I don't use TikTok anymore. But I put in my best foot forward. I put in a lot of content, put in a lot of work for content, and I succeeded. Or at least I feel like my own metric of success has been reached on TikTok. Should I go back to it? Maybe. I don't know. It doesn't really matter to me that much. However, I thought of something. I wanted to try it. I did it. And then even if I ended up with 2 followers throughout the whole time, I at least put my best foot forward, and I made it. And so that's all I can be happy about, you know?
What
Um,
kind of content were you making on TikTok?
so I was commentating people's clips. People would submit clips to me and I would commentate over them. I would try to do weekly content of games. So it'd be like a week of CSGO, a week of League, a week of Overwatch. And it'd be just like 15 seconds, 30 seconds max. But my best and most successful clips were commentating over GTA fails. So
That's
there's
interesting.
there was this one clip that went viral, 2 million views. The one clip that like turned it all around, and made my account from like 100 followers to like 20,000 followers. Um, there was this skateboard thing. Like this guy was on a skateboard in GTA, and like he did some cool stuff, and it wasn't a fail. Like it was all good stuff. And I start off the clip by saying, "Now we're tuning in to Tony Hawk's son, Mike Hawk." And down, and I just kept throwing the pun back in. Oh man, Mike Hawk is incredible. And I just kept, and then, but I mean, like TikTok's like Gen Z or whatever. Like they're gonna eat that up, you know. So,
Yeah.
like to me, it made like I didn't think of it. I didn't think it was going to be a viral clip. I was just like, I'm having fun with this. This is hilarious. This is the type of comedy that I like. Full send, and it went viral.
So I guess what I want to ask is this is another form of content creation. Like you talk about wanting to just make content. If you could pick any kind of content that you wanted to create, like if you could be a Twitch streamer or a YouTuber or a Let's Plays or just full on commentary or a TikTok creator, like what would you want to do? What would be your choice, and like what kind of content would you want to create? Would it be esports content, or would it be completely separate from that?
I think it will be a little bit. I think it will be completely separate. I think um, uh, I really love inside jokes, and I feel like that is super key when you're building up an audience with Twitch and YouTube. Building those inside jokes, and one of those people that I highly respect. I know that he's probably done some bad things. I know that people don't like him. People probably don't respect him. But I think Doc is the prime example of content is king. He himself is a piece of content. He's
Yeah,
created this
it's a
persona,
caricature.
caricature, but it's it's so easy for him to make content. And if I was to make a go at YouTube, I would do it exactly like him. I would hire editors, I would hire storyboarders, I would hire creative designers. I don't think that there are a lot of people that are making content that do that. A lot of people just they'll hire an editor, and that's the person that just revolves around. But this guy, I feel like, has got like a design team, a creative process team. He's at the helm, making some of those creative decisions. But the people that are bringing it to life are these, experts in their field, expert in motion design, experts in storyboarding, experts in Photoshop or After Effects or whatever it is. And if I were to make a go, it would. I mean, I don't think I would make a caricature, but I'll be that serious in making it feel like this is my TV show, and so I'm gonna hire a team,
Yeah.
to help put this together.
Ultimately, that's the one thing I think people need to see when they look at a streamer like DrDisrespect is that it's like a TV show. It
Yeah.
may not necessarily be scripted, but
No.
moments of that show are pre-planned and prepared.
Yeah.
And I think that's what makes it so fun to watch. And I
Yeah.
think the fact that he's this caricature is entertaining. Like, look at some of like the bigger streamers that are just like a big meme. What
Yeah.
is it? A spicy dragon or whatever the heck the guy's name, or spicy
Oh, Sushi Dragon. Sushi
Sushi
Dragon.
Dragon. There you go. I couldn't remember his name. That guy's
Yeah.
just like a massive meme. But like people love it. He just dances in his garage with like 8 stream decks taped all over his body, and he's just like making all these effects happen, and it's so stupid, but at the same time so fun to watch
Yeah.
because even if you only watch it for 10 minutes and you're like, "Whoa, this is wild." Everyone else is watching it for 10 minutes. And then a month later, you might come back and watch it for 10 minutes again. And like, you'll just constantly come back to it and watch it. It may not be the kind of thing I'm going to sit and watch an entire stream of, but
Yeah.
I'm also maybe not his person or his audience. I think that there is a massive void right now for streamers like that, these sort of shtick characters like DrDisrespect.
Yep.
And I think there is a huge opportunity missed by him specifically to pre-plan and program with a nemesis. I
Ooh.
think DrDisrespect should actually work with his creative team to get another streamer to stream that's like Professor Kindness. And like he is the antithesis of DrDisrespect. He's always polite. He's like super short and chubby and has like blonde hair and glasses, and like he's just a really friendly guy. Maybe he's even bald on the top like Benjamin Franklin, but it's like blonde hair on the sides. Like you can really build out this character to be the
Yeah.
complete opposite. And then
Yes.
they clash in game. And like they work with companies who do invitationals to get them to play against each other. So that you have like in-game DrDisrespect is talking trash and he's like, really great try, guys, loved what I saw there, like just completely the opposite, so that you have a dynamic that builds.
Yeah.
Even if no one watches that other person, even if you get like 5 viewers, you
Yeah.
have a fun dynamic that DrDisrespect stream enjoys, so
Yeah.
ultimately his viewership increases and his engagement goes up.
Yeah. And I really do want to point out as well. Like, by the way, I think that's a great idea. And one of my very close friends, he's the #1 Doc fan. And he knows, like, he doesn't have like a lot of merch, but he watches his stream like religiously, so he knows everything about the Doc. One thing that I think is super key is something that you mentioned, is that there is, I think, a desire for more of these characters. You look at somebody like Josh OG and Summit, while they are kind of at the top of Twitch and they're streaming consistently and people are watching, I get this feeling that like there can only be so many streamers that are good at games that you're going to watch because
Yeah.
they're good at games, right? There's only so much space for that. But the more characters there are, the easier it is to be like, that's a niche that's always going to be around because it's never going to get old, right? Doc is, well, to be fair, I feel like Doc has just consistently reinvented himself month after month, and any characters that come along need to do that. There's like 100%. There's no way that you're not going to get around that. But I feel like there's a lot of these streamers that are at the top that don't really add a whole lot of value. I'm not going to point out to Summit and Josh OG specifically, but there's a lot of streamers at the top that I don't think add a whole lot of value to the entertainment space. And I wonder how long they're going to be around. I mean, I feel like I don't know. It's a really hard say to guess, but I don't know. I'm gonna stick to my gut and say that I think there's a lot of streamers that are at the top, but don't actually add a whole lot of value to the entertainment space.
Yeah, I mean, you got to look at it like this. How many of those streamers just play with each other and the audience just jumps from
Yeah.
one to another? Like I look at Tim the Tatman, who's really gone from being a kind of mid-level streamer to one of the top streamers on Twitch currently. And I watched him rise up from being that mid-level streamer. A lot of the people he plays with are also top streamers, and a lot of the audience has crossover because they are just fans of that group of people. So
Yeah.
and that's not to say those people don't deserve that following. I'm not saying Tim the
Yeah.
Tatman or Summit or any of these guys did not earn that following.
Yeah.
They absolutely did. They grinded for it. A lot of respect to them for sticking through it through all the years. But ultimately, they're just taking viewers away from each other. So
Yeah.
what's going to cause those viewers to go to a different group? What's going to cause some other up and comer who's also really skilled mechanically, or a gifted gamer from like gobbling up that audience? Like I look at those guys are good gamers, but they're like a casual good gamer. Like they're good at games, but they're casually good at it. So like a Summit might have a big audience, but he's not a big esports person.
No.
He does compete and stuff from time to time. But even towards the tail end of his CS:GO career, he was not like the greatest player. He was just good. He was serviceable. But then you look at someone like Dizzy or someone like Ace. These guys are crazy good mechanically. And their audience doesn't necessarily hit the same numbers that those guys get. And then I even look even further down the line, and I look at a streamer like Stormin. Stormin played in the G2 Brawl that we did. Stormin is a Swedish streamer who played in H1Z1. Fantastic player in H1Z1. Or OPSCT, which was basically his North American counterpart. He played for TSM for a little while. He was a content creator for them. OPSCT has disappeared at various points. I'm not sure why. For like an entire year, he just stops streaming for a whole year and then just comes back and starts up again. But both of those guys are incredibly gifted, like really skilled gamers. They just crush everything they touch, especially when it comes to first-person shooters. But their audiences aren't that big. And it's not that they're not entertaining. They put themselves into that. But again, like you said, the audience is just only so big. And even though it's growing, it's not growing fast enough for those people to match the same numbers as you're seeing on those other streams.
Yeah.
So it's tough. I think Twitch is in desperate need of more people who just do raw entertainment, and I'm not talking about IRL streams. I'm talking about someone who like just creates something fun. I love watching like the shows that do like D&D, because D&D is all about like creating the entertainment. Like you're making the game as it goes, and you have a series of talking heads, and it's all about the conversation between those people. But I'm talking like maybe someone's going to start making shows exclusively for Twitch. Maybe we should do that.
Oh, yeah. Maybe we should. I mean, that is why, and like, no, I'm not like the biggest fan of e-girls and that whole thing on Twitch. That thing really just sucks a lot. My girlfriend's definitely not happy about them. But there's one Twitch streamer in particular that I'm seeing is smashing numbers, but it's because he has his own like little mini TV show, The Bachelor.
He recently changed his name too.
Yeah,
he's no longer calling himself Raj Patel. He's calling himself Austin in TV or something. He actually put out a huge tweet longer apologizing for using the name Raj Patel and for appropriating Indian culture.
Wow.
So, but yeah, I know who you're talking about. Go ahead.
Yeah, but like that's another like, as much as we can harp on it and say like, okay, like I'm not like the biggest fan of this. You have to give credit where credit is due. That is like another form of entertainment that people are watching. People are enjoying it. People are. He doesn't stream often, but when he does, he smashes numbers, right? So
yeah, it's low budget, low quality production, but it's entertainment value that wins out. Honestly, it's like Ratchet TV. It's not exactly like, it's pretty trashy sometimes. But hey, Jerry Springer is trashy TV, and that did so well that shows started copying off of it, and you had shows like Maury, and then Jerry Springer's Bodyguard had a show, his own show, a daily talk show. I can't remember the guy's name. He's the big bald guy. But like, it's pretty trashy TV, but you can't stop watching for some reason. And I've actually used them in proposals before in slideshows. I've said like, hey, there is a specific I'm using this as a study to show, like, you don't have to have the greatest polish on your production. You need to have content. And sometimes that content is stupid content, because that's personally what I believe. I think that content is pretty stupid, but it's not for me. I'm not that audience. So, of course, I think it's stupid. His audience thinks it's great. They also are able to recognize, like, this is trashy TV, but I love it. Shows like Lizard Lick Towing exist on TV. This is the equivalent for Twitch. And now that you can start to look at like traditional TV and programming and start to say, well, how can I convert that into a Twitch show? Because we already have sports broadcasting and esports broadcasting, and now we have like the trashy TV. And I'm wondering if anyone's ever going to create like an episodic show that airs exclusively on Twitch. Because we've seen, like, look at when they did the Power Rangers or Bob Ross or all that stuff, when Twitch watches all that stuff, the audience is huge for it. And those are episodic shows. I feel like you could actually have a pretty solid level of success producing an episodic show for Twitch, as long as you understand that it doesn't have to be gamer specific. Like, it doesn't have to be a show about gamers. You don't have to pander to your audience. Just make a show that you think people would like.
Yeah, and I think there's something to be said as well about the timely marketing of it. Like, if people know that it's going to be every Wednesday at 7 p.m., it's going to build up a certain level of hype, especially if you're going to be advertising it in a really great way or pushing it in a really great way promotionally. And so, like, just going back to that Doc example, if he released like an episodic show Thursdays at, I don't know, 8 p.m. Eastern, he would market the hell out of that. We already know that. We both know that. Like, there would be no one that doesn't know about that show. And I also want to clarify that I think you and I are on the same wavelength here when we're saying a podcast isn't a show. Like, it is, but not the type of show that we're talking about. We're talking about like actual content, not just two people talking, like an actual, produced piece of content that is designed to not just be two people talking.
Yeah, something potentially scripted.
Yes, scripted. Yeah, there you go.
Well, one last question before I let you go. If there was one thing that you had to do as a caster that would allow you to feel like you succeeded, what would that one thing be? Would it be in Valorant, or would it be in League of Legends? Would it be casting some sort of large form event, in person or online? Like, what would it take for you to feel like I did what I came here to do?
Cast a world championship. I mean, as every player's dream is to be at the world championship, to compete and to play, it would be to cast a big and I don't really know where my career is gonna where my career might take me. Valorant might be a complete, like, I might just screw up or something and it might not pan out. I'm not trying to like put all my eggs into one basket. I would love to be a part of the Valorant on air team, and that is what I'm obviously trying to work towards. But my be-all, end-all goal would be to cast a world championship. But I'm not going to limit it to a game because I don't know what the future could hold. If it's going to be one, it probably will. My desire will likely be the Valorant World Championship, but I don't want to. I don't know what's going to happen.
Fingers crossed that we get to do that one together, because that sounds like it'd be a lot of fun. Simo, thank you so much for joining me on the show.
Thank you for having me.
Guys, if you like the show, you guys can catch it every Wednesday at noon right here on Twitch. It also goes live on YouTube and Facebook, and soon to be live on Mixer, maybe even this week. But you can find us on all those places. It's Nerd Street Gamers, NERDST Gamers. You can also head to our website, nerdstreetgamers.com, nerdstgamers.com, to find out what else we're creating and events that we have coming up in the pipeline. Guys, thank you so much for watching. We'll see you next time.